Something happened this morning that deserves a careful and deliberate explanation, not because it is overly complex, but because it is deceptively simple. And that simplicity is exactly why so many people are missing what is actually going on. Right now, most coverage is treating this as three separate developments, three disconnected headlines, but they are not separate. They are parts of the same system, unfolding in real time, and once you connect them, the entire picture changes. Let's start with the first piece. Earlier today, Iran's senior military command issued a statement, and the wording was very deliberate. They said that security in the Persian Gulf and the Sea of Oman must exist either for everyone or for no one at all. At first, that might sound like a general principle, almost diplomatic in tone. But then came the escalation. Iran made it clear that no port in the region would be safe. Not just Iranian ports, not just the Strait of Hormuz, but every major port across the Gulf. Dubai, Abu Dhabi, Doha, Kuwait City, and Ras Nura in Saudi Arabia, the most critical oil export terminal in the world. This was not vague language. It was direct, specific, and expansive. It was not just a warning, it was a declaration of scope. Now consider the second piece. As of today, April 15, 2026, the United States has not issued a direct and formal response to that statement. There has been no press conference addressing it, no official counter-threat, no clearly defined military position tied specifically to this escalation. The blockade remains in place, and the ceasefire technically still exists. But Iran has now expanded the potential battlefield from a single strategic choke point to an entire regional network of ports and shipping lanes. And publicly, Washington has remained silent. That silence is important, but not in the way people might assume. It is not necessarily a sign of weakness or confusion. It is something more calculated, more deliberate. But before we get into that, we need to look at the third piece, because it is the one that connects everything else. That piece is China. China is not involved in the conflict in the traditional sense. It is not deploying troops, and it is not openly engaging in military operations alongside Iran, but it has done something far more significant. Over the years, China has built a system that allows Iran to function under pressure, even extreme pressure, and that system is now playing a central role in shaping the dynamics of this conflict. It is the reason Iran has the confidence to make a statement like the one it made today. When you bring these three elements together, Iran's threat, America's silence, and China's system, you start to see a very different kind of story. This is not just about military escalation, it is about strategy, signaling, and leverage. To understand Iran's statement properly, you have to ask a simple question. Who is the real audience? Most people assume Iran is speaking directly to the United States, but that is not entirely accurate. The United States already understands Iran's military capabilities. After weeks of conflict, Washington knows about Iran's missiles, its drones, its naval tactics, and its ability to operate asymmetrically. There is nothing new in that sense. So Iran is not primarily trying to inform the United States. It is trying to influence someone else. The real audience is the Gulf states. Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, Qatar, countries whose economies depend on stable shipping routes, uninterrupted oil exports, and the smooth functioning of global trade. Iran is sending them a message. If the blockade continues, this will not remain a contained conflict between Iran and the United States. It will become a regional problem, one that directly affects their ports, their economies, and their security. That message carries weight because these countries are not direct participants in the war. They did not initiate strikes against Iran. They have been watching from the sidelines, hoping that the conflict remains contained and does not spill over into their own territories. But now Iran is signaling that containment may no longer be possible. We are already seeing the effects of this. Reports indicate that Saudi Arabia is urging the United States to reconsider its approach and move back toward negotiations. This is significant. The country that the United States claims to be protecting is now expressing concern that current actions could increase regional instability. That is not a minor shift. It is a signal that Iran's message is landing exactly where it was intended. Now, there is a natural question that follows. How credible is Iran's threat? After all, Iran has suffered significant military damage over the past several weeks. Its infrastructure has been targeted, its capabilities degraded. So why should anyone take this warning seriously? The answer lies in the nature of the threat itself. Iran does not need overwhelming military dominance to disrupt shipping and threaten ports. It relies on asymmetry. Fast attack boats, drones, and missile systems are more than sufficient to target tankers and infrastructure in the Gulf. These are relatively low-cost, high-impact tools, and Iran still has them in significant quantities. In fact, Iranian officials have indicated that they have not yet used all of their available capabilities. they have described having untouched levers, suggesting that there are escalation options still on the table. There is also another layer to this. Iran's influence is not limited to the Gulf. In the Red Sea, groups aligned with Iran, particularly in Yemen, have already demonstrated their ability to disrupt shipping routes. If operations in the Red Sea resume while tensions escalate in the Persian Gulf, the result would be two major choke points. Under simultaneous pressure, together, these routes handle a substantial portion of global trade. Disruptions on that scale would not just affect the region, they would have global economic consequences. Now, let's return to the United States and its silence. As mentioned earlier, this silence is not accidental. The United States is currently managing multiple complex dynamics at once. It is enforcing a naval blockade, navigating a fragile ceasefire, engaging in indirect negotiations through regional intermediaries, and monitoring the actions of other major powers. Responding publicly to Iran's latest threat could escalate the situation at a moment when diplomatic options are still being explored. However, silence comes with its own risks. For the Gulf states, uncertainty is a serious concern. They are watching closely, trying to determine whether the United States will extend protection to their infrastructure if Iran acts on its threat. The absence of a clear answer creates anxiety, and that anxiety is precisely what Iran is trying to generate. This is not just a military maneuver. It is a diplomatic strategy aimed at creating divisions between the United States and its regional partners. And this is where China's role becomes even more important. Before the conflict began, Iran was exporting around 1.6 to 1.7 million barrels of oil per day. During the height of the war, those exports did not collapse. In fact, they increased. That should not be possible under normal circumstances, especially given the level of pressure Iran has been under. The explanation lies in the system China has built. China has been purchasing Iranian oil outside the traditional financial system for years. It uses alternative currencies, secondary banking networks, and a fleet of tankers that operate without standard tracking systems. These vessels, often referred to as a dark fleet, move oil in ways that are difficult to monitor and regulate. The oil is then processed in Chinese refineries that are structured to handle sanctioned crude. This system was not created overnight. It was designed specifically to withstand situations like this, and it is working. Iran continues to generate revenue, and that revenue provides the economic stability needed to sustain its position. This leads to a critical point. Iran's willingness to escalate is directly tied to its confidence in its ability to absorb the consequences. If Iran believed that escalation would lead to immediate economic collapse, it would act very differently. But as long as China continues to provide an economic lifeline, that pressure is reduced. There are also indications that China's role may extend beyond economics. Intelligence reports suggest the possibility of military support being routed through indirect channels. Whether or not these reports are fully confirmed, the perception alone strengthens Iran's strategic position. It reinforces the idea that Iran is not isolated, that it has backing, and that it can continue to operate despite pressure. This dynamic can be understood through what might be called a confidence ladder. Each time Iran tests a boundary and does not face overwhelming consequences, its confidence increases. Each step builds on the previous one. Over time, this creates a pattern of escalation that feels manageable from Iran's perspective. China's support strengthens every step of that ladder. Economic support, diplomatic positioning, and potential military assistance all contribute to Iran's sense that it can push further without triggering collapse. This is not about military superiority, it is about strategic confidence. And that brings us to the central question. What is the United States' strategy when it comes to China's role in all of this? So far, most actions have focused directly on Iran blockades, negotiations, military pressure. But if China is the factor that enables Iran to withstand that pressure, then ignoring China leaves a significant gap in the strategy. The next few days will be critical. The ceasefire is approaching its expiration, and the decisions made between now and then will shape the direction of the conflict. If the United States responds directly and forcefully to Iran's threat, that would signal a shift toward escalation. If it continues to prioritize diplomacy, the current pattern of silence may continue. And if China becomes a central focus of negotiations or pressure, that would represent a major shift in how the situation is being handled. At this moment, it is not entirely clear which path is being taken. But one thing is certain, Iran's statement today was not random. It was calculated. It reflects a level of confidence that has been building over time, shaped by repeated interactions and responses. And behind that confidence is a system that has been developing quietly for years, largely unnoticed by the broader public. Systems do not announce themselves, they do not make headlines, they operate in the background, consistently and effectively. What we are seeing now is the visible result of that system under pressure. The statement made today is not the story by itself, it is the outcome of something deeper. It is what that system looks like when it is fully operational, and that is the real story.